Evening. It is 5:45. I will call to order the July 6th, 2023 regular meeting of the Hendersonville City Council. We begin our meeting with a silent invocation for people to pray or meditate as they choose, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would rise, please. Join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right. We have 5 people signed up for general public comment this evening. Is there anyone seeking recognition online to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor, one hand is raised.
One hand, okay. Let's give each person 3 minutes. I think we can manage that. Right, so I will just go down, and what we'd ask is if you would come to the microphone and give your name and address for the clerk's record, please. First is it Lyra or Lyra? Lyra Prickett.
My name is Lyra Prickett, and I have a business at, I think I put 202, but it's 212 South Grove Street. Today I want to start off by saying thank you for the job that you all stepped up to do. There is a lot of time that you've put into fulfilling your duties, and few step forward to take on this responsibility. You did that, and I thank you for that. Over the past few years, I've heard a lot of follow the science from people supporting vaccine and masking, etc. Today, I ask you to consider whether Hendersonville should follow the science. Please write down your answer, yes or no, so that you hold yourself accountable. The reason I ask is that this is perhaps the 3rd or 4th time that I'm here with information from scientific studies that say DEI programs, or today, implicit bias trainings, are not effective and can in fact do harm instead of help. 99.9% of what our brains process is unconscious, implicit, including implicit bias. Now, I bring this up because the Akira DEI proposal includes implicit bias training. You form an opinion about me, as the audience did previously that were sitting over here, and they told you what I wanted. They said I was here because of hate, bigotry, and that I wanted to go back to the 50s, which I wasn't there. But, you know, you were here and you saw it. You probably formed a decision about my intent as well. That's implicit bias. We all do it. It's a survival mechanism of the amygdala. The problem is testing for implicit bias cannot predict if a person discriminates based on that human response in the amygdala. Studies show that showing people their own implicit bias can actually cause them to recognize and then include that implicit bias in their decision making. Once again, not enough time, although we did get extra time today. Hopefully you wrote yes, and you will actually pay attention to the science about DEI and implicit bias training before you do harm to Hendersonville and its employees. And remember that Ms. Greer is an attorney, not a psychologist with a science background. I implore you, don't follow the crowd, follow the science. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Appleby?
Hello, my name is Tom Appleby. I'm also recovering from cancer. All my hair is from my last time that I had chemo, so that's why I do have long hair.
If you could give your address, please.
Oh, I am from Bat Cave, and I'm a frequent shopper, or used to be, and I'm totally against the kiosks on Main Street. I think they were actually put up illegally because they never went through the Historical Preservation Commission for their approval, and it's taking money away from merchants. I have a 4-year college degree from New England College. I studied business and economics. And I can tell you through all my studies and meeting with all the townspeople that they're being greatly affected by the kiosks. In fact, I look at the kiosks as solar-powered begging machines. It's almost like, hey, you want to park in Hendersonville? Come on, pay up, pay up. And 35 cents goes to Georgia Park Mobile. All the money should stay in if we're going to be paying off this parking garage. And I'm very upset about it because it really ruined the town. I remember going and seeing all the nice bears when I walk there. I go buy a guitar pick, a donut, but I'm not going to pay $4 and come and buy a guitar pick. The economics just doesn't work for me. I know there's people who have already been double charged by the kiosks and they've gotten no refunds. I know of a person that lost over $1,000 sale of a painting because they saw the ticket was going to be on their window and they ran out and left. I know that your downtown shop owners are being ticketed. And every day the city council is panhandling on Main Street. I think it's disgraceful. Over $8 million to build a parking garage, and it ended up being over a $9 billion debt. No vote for any taxpayer. Who is your responsible party, I ask? If I had to ask my wife that I wanted to build an $8 million parking garage, I'd have to do a little asking and finagling, and I think it was just too easy. And I'm very disgusted, and that's why I'm starting to move my places and my shopping tendencies others, but you're hurting my friends who are the business owners of Hendersonville. And I would ask you that you could keep the kiosks within the parking garage, within its boundaries, but not on the historical section of Main Street, in front of the most beautiful courthouse in Hendersonville. And I guess you know how I feel, and I would ask you to please scale back the kiosks off of Main Street, because I think they were put up illegally anyway. And I have nothing more to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Appleby. Corinne Mandel.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for being here. I'm a resident of the city of Hendersonville, and my name is Corinne Mandel. Newsflash, June 29th, 2023. In a 6-3 ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court has rejected the use of race in admission policies at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and Harvard University. Quote, "Today's ruling, affirmative action as unconstitutional, is a massive win for achieving real equality in this country. Your skin color, sex, and religion do not determine your outcomes in life. Hard work and determination do. We are not a nation of victims. We are a nation of opportunity. This opinion ensures that everyone will have equal access to those opportunities. There should always be equal rights, not extra rights," unquote, Ben Carson. Newsflash, July 3rd, 2023. Following last week's landmark Supreme Court ruling targeting affirmative action at U.S. colleges, a top federal commissioner predicted that companies and corporations will see an increasing number of lawsuits over controversial left-wing diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI programs, as well as the equally controversial environmental, social, and corporate governance ESG measures. We are keeping our eyes on that one as well. Do you want to open the city up to lawsuits? Piece by piece, DEI, which is rooted in Marxist ideology, is being constitutionally dismantled before our very eyes. It's just a matter of time before it's dismantled here as well. In my humble opinion, it would behoove the council to walk away from the Akira contract to save face and taxpayer money. I have a dream. Newsflash, a date in the near future. The City Council of Hendersonville, North Carolina cancels their contract with Akira, legal and diversity consultants, and reallocates funds to solve the real, tangible problems of their city. They have revised their mission statement to read equality rather than equity, and will choose merit in all cases above all else. And they all live happily ever after. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Silvius?
Hello, my name is Cher Silvius, and I thank you for what you guys do here. I've been up here speaking to you on several occasions now, and we don't seem to be getting any answers on the DEI issue that the two gals just talked about. It appears that through the council that you brought in and hired for $150,000 have not found anything worthy of them being hired, and that was, I think, the purpose of you hiring them. You brought them in without a problem being present, and you say here, when under your preferred specifications and requirements and looking for a consultant firm, that you wanted to create a culture that is inclusive and promotes a collective mixture of similarities and differences. There's nothing in and of itself wrong with that, but if you're not doing that already, then I guess there would be a problem. But I do believe that your staff and people here have been desiring hiring people because of their character and their abilities, not according to race, sexual orientation, or gender. On here, it says to use information from the assessment to assist with determining what areas need culturally specific training and employee engagement. Examples: the construct of race and racism, understanding the LGBTQ community, and inclusion of all regardless of their abilities or their disabilities. So inclusion of all regardless of their abilities. That doesn't sound like something to hiring purposes, is to include people regardless of their ability. So we should hire according to what they can do, not what they can't do. It is just very disheartening that you were wanting your employees to dwell on people's personhood instead of doing their job. You're making people go through these programs to look at other people and highlight differences in them instead of just looking at them as people and each of them doing their job that they were hired to do. So why make people have to spend so much time on their differences and not just doing their job? So we appreciate what you do, but we really do desire an answer to why you hired this consultant firm. Thank you.
Thank you. Clifford Meek?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Clifford Meek. Can you hear me? I'm on Wilkins Street here in Hendersonville since 1992. I'm here before you. I'd like to thank each of my council members and my mayor for her leadership. Recently, I asked for a little support on a subject of rail transportation here in Western North Carolina, rail passenger service, at which time you offered a proclamation listing that support, so I thank you. I'm here to follow up on that idea at this time. The nearest Amtrak station that we are close to is Spartanburg, South Carolina. 2 trains in the middle of the night, but at least they have service, and that's the line this line through Hendersonville goes through. Between here and Spartanburg, there's 40 miles of rail line available for sale. It was not on Amtrak's agenda of programs to finance under the infrastructure bill passed. And I'd like at this time for our city council to make contact with the infrastructure people and Amtrak, tell them the line's available for sale, and please use infrastructure monies to purchase it. It'll be 40 miles, and Amtrak would be only 20 miles away from Asheville, where they are already listing that service on their webpage, but coming up from the Old Fort side of the mountains, not the Hendersonville side of the mountains. So let's beat Old Fort to the punch, as it were, and get our 2 bits in too. So because our public representative at the time, Madison Cawthon, he voted against the infrastructure bill when it was his time to vote. Therefore, we are entitled under Civics 101 to make contact directly with the federal government in Washington of our needs and wishes. So a little email to Amtrak, President, CEO, expressing them that we would like infrastructure money used on the purchase of 40 miles of Class 1 rail still in place from Spartanburg to Henderson County, at which time they would only be 20 miles short of their final destination, Asheville. Also, I have a little idea about the Yakusta line. If you would give it a little bit of thought, let's bring it back as rails. It's currently in the process of becoming trails. Let's invite Biltmore to run a 5-star dinner train from Hendersonville to Brevard. That's how you bring the rail line back. A little email over to Biltmore would suffice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Meek. Okay, and the person who is online?
Ken Fitch, you are unmuted.
Ken Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. It is with some sadness that one notes the departure of Lee Smith, one of the truly committed members of the extraordinary team of city department staff leaders who have provided exceptional service all these years. Lee Smith has retained and inspired an exceptional team of dedicated workers who have demonstrated a high degree of quality functioning and stewardship. With his measured demeanor, he has devoted his attention to critical tasks and infrastructure, avoiding conflicts raging elsewhere with his unwavering goal of optimal service provision. He has always been a dutiful and dignified presence among us. But yes, we also remember seeing him on his daily jogs through town on his lunch hour, and those unforgettable, politely explicit presentations at the neighborhood community meetings where he would speak about homeowners' best practices for, shall we say, sewer system functionality, a topic to which he will return with a crowning initiative in his presentation later in this meeting. His presence among us and his service to us will be much missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch. Right, that is all the public comment we have this evening. Next is consideration of the agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to have removed from or added to the agenda? Or a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, I move that the City Council approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. We have our agenda. Consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to have moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda so it can be discussed? Or if not, a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, I move that City Council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and that has been approved. And Mr. Smith has notified us that he will be late this evening, so that's why we're going without him here for right now. We have some presentations.
Mr. Burr, will you please bring the chair forward? Mr. Smith, will you please come honor us by... We expect you to sit in it while she reads.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because this is a pretty long proclamation, might as well say that. Okay, so this is, whereas Lee Smith has announced his intention to retire as City of Hendersonville as the Director of the city's Water and Sewer Department effective July 31st, 2023. And whereas Lee Smith will depart leaving behind an impressive legacy of public service to Hendersonville and surrounding Henderson County, organizing, directing, and managing the day-to-day operations of the utility. And whereas Lee Smith has had several noteworthy accomplishments during his tenure as City of Hendersonville Utilities Director and oversaw the growth and expansion of the utility from 2005 to the present. And whereas the number of businesses and homes connected to the water system increased from approximately 22,000 to over 31,000, and the water system grew from approximately 500 miles of pipe to over 680 miles of pipe. And whereas the number of businesses and homes connected to the sewer system increased from approximately 6,800 to over 10,000, and the sewer system grew from approximately 135 miles of pipe to over 180 miles of pipe. And whereas full-time personnel supporting the utility grew from 66 employees to 96 employees, and the annual operating budget increased from $14.2 million to $24.2 million. And whereas Lee Smith ensured the provision of a high level of water and sewer service to the community in an operationally and financially efficient manner. And whereas Lee Smith led the utility through several notable improvement projects, including but not limited to water treatment facility renovation, advanced metering infrastructure implementation, French Broad River water intake, Etowah and Fletcher area water improvements, sewer treatment facility equipment replacements, upgrades, Jackson Park sewer interceptor, and whereas Lee Smith developed and oversaw the implementation of utility policies, long-range plans, procedures and standards, and prepared and administered many years of annual utility operating budgets. Now therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Hendersonville on behalf of the citizens and employees of Hendersonville, that the Mayor and City Council extend to Lee Smith their sincere appreciation for all of his loyal and dedicated service to the betterment of the City of Hendersonville for the past 18 years. Council members, you have heard the resolution. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. And you are officially recognized.
Oh, man.
Yeah, okay. Say something.
Thank you.
That's a good idea.
Not much for words, but I do appreciate all the support that this council and management have provided to our department. We have definitely come a long way, and I appreciate our engineering department and all of the other departments that work with us, and all the people that, and can't forget all of our folks. Those are the ones that make everything happen. I thank you all.
And we have one more resolution.
So I'll ask Captain Cox if you'll come forward, and if the chief will join him.
This is a resolution to recognize distinguished service to the city of Hendersonville and awarding of service sidearm. Whereas North Carolina General Statutes 20-187.2 provides that retiring members of law enforcement agencies may receive, at the time of their retirement, the badge worn or carried by them during their service. And whereas NCGS 20-187.2 further provides that the governing body of the governing law enforcement agency may, at its discretion, award to a retiring member their service sidearm at a price determined by such governing body upon determining that the person receiving the weapon is not ineligible to own, possess, or receive a firearm under the provisions of state or federal law.
He's good.
Whereas the City of Hendersonville hereby recognizes 30 years of distinguished service by Captain Tracy Dwayne Cox for the City of Hendersonville and its residents. And whereas the City of Hendersonville wishes to recognize Captain Tracy Cox's service in a manner that is customary for persons retiring from distinguished law enforcement service. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Hendersonville that the City of Hendersonville hereby awards to Captain Tracy Dwayne Cox his service sidearm, Glock Model 19 9mm, serial number WSZ969, for a cost of $1, as determined in the policy for the granting of badges and service sidearms for sworn law enforcement officers, as a token of appreciation for his many years of service and dedication to the City of Hendersonville and its residents. Council, you've heard the resolution. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and we have adopted the resolution.
Thank you.
Job well done.
I didn't have a speech prepared, but I will say that 30 years has flown by. The city is a great place to work. I've enjoyed the 30 years here, and I will miss it. And thanks to all the co-workers and everyone that supported me over the years. So thank you.
Bunch up.
Two people who will definitely be missed. All right, Mr. Wooten, Mr. Connick, do you want to do any introductions on this one first?
Yes, I will. As Tom comes forward, as part of our efforts for professional development, we always encourage all of our teammates to seek out professional development. And I will say, particularly for our operational departments, sometimes it's harder for them to do that. They have to dedicate a lot of their personal time. And we have two individuals this evening that have devoted their personal time, extracurricular, extra professional development, and it's very much appreciated because it makes the city better. And I appreciate the work that Frank and Stacy have done. And I'll ask Tom to make the presentation as it relates to what exactly they did to become Rhodes Scholars.
Frank, if you guys want to come on up here. And while they're coming up, the Rhodes Scholar program is a program that's offered through the North Carolina Local Transportation Assistance Program at NC State entry. And these gentlemen have completed 7 required courses in order to obtain this first level certification And there's 2 more levels, but they've made it this far, and I'm sure they'll keep working toward the next level. But I just want to say, as John did, thanks for you guys for putting your time in and making the effort to achieve this, and I hope you continue to do so.
And finally, Mayor, I'll ask Steve Alverson to come forward and discuss our recertification under the SHARP program. And I would ask the fire department to please join Steve at the podium.
Just wanted to share some information with you. OSHA has recently evaluated our fire department and have passed the SHARP certification process. Currently, there are only 155 SHARP designated entities in North Carolina. Within that, you've got construction, private, public sector, and the stat that makes it so important is there's only 15 fire departments of that 155. And then to make it even more relevant, if you, with FEMA, there are 1,085 registered fire departments in North Carolina, and only 15 of those are SHARP. So just wanted to, they passed the recertification process, and then that's good for another 2 years.
So the SHARP Award really rewards our department for providing us a safe place for our firefighters to work every day, and we appreciate the effort and appreciate the leadership of Steve as our safety officer, making sure we provide a safe place for our employees, because we all want them to go home in the evening just as they came to work. So it's really important. So thank you, Steve. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, that is our presentations. Go on, we have a couple of public hearings. The first is a standard rezoning, Blue Ridge Commerce Center. Mr. Morrow.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. So the city is requesting that initial zoning be placed on several properties that were annexed at your July 1st meeting. So that is what this petition is for. The location of the parcels are off McMurray Road and Maccabee Court. They front I-26, as you can see on the right side of your screen, and they're designated in the red. The city of Hendersonville is the applicant on this rezoning request, because when we annex a property that's not under our zoning, we do have to provide initial zoning for that property, and that is what this application is for. The existing zoning in place today, or until it was annexed, was Henderson County Industrial. The city staff is proposing I-1 Industrial, which is the city's version of industrial zoning. The acreage of the site, 65.31 acres. There would be any permitted use within I-1 would be allowed on the site. And the future land use designations are Business Center and Regional Activity Center. The subject property is located off McMurray Road, as I mentioned. The area is predominantly under the zoning and planning jurisdiction of Henderson County, with some satellite annex properties along the Upper Road corridor. The subject property is currently zoned Henderson County Industrial. Properties to the north are zoned Henderson County Industrial and residential to rural, and contain a small industrial park along Reed's Way. Properties to the east are zoned Henderson County Industrial and R1. The I-26 exit 53 interchange to the south of the subject property contains commercial uses and zoning that would align with those type of uses, a lot of them being city zoning designations. To the west, across I-26, there is some City of Hendersonville zoning of CHMU, PRD, CZD, and Henderson County OI, which is for the Blue Ridge Community College. So since the current and proposed zoning districts are industrial, there are a wide range of uses permitted under both districts. So instead of going through and comparing each of the uses in the slide, I will go through the differences in the dimensional requirements. A comparison of uses was included in your packet. So I will go through these. So as I go through this, you'll notice I'll highlight some things. So blue basically means items that are in one ordinance and not really the other. So as you'll see, the city has a minimum square footage for our lot area. This county has a maximum impervious surface calculation. Then they also have a maximum floor area, which is unlimited. So as you'll also see, so these are standards that we have in common, but are not the same. They're shown in red. So the setbacks through the county would be 20 feet. Through the city, it'd be 35. Side and rear are both the same. So both of them do have a maximum height. The county clearly says it's 72 feet. The city has a 35-foot standard, but you can go above that if your yards, required side yards and that kind of things increase, pushing you back off other properties. So there is that requirement, which is a little different than Henderson County. So as you'll see, these are some site photos of the site as it exists today. So the top left view is from McMurray Road towards the west, showing the existing site work that's taken place. Top right is from one of the properties looking southwest. The bottom left is view from the subject property looking north to south. And then also the bottom right is some additional photos of the site work that's currently occurring on the site. So the City of Hendersonville's 2030 Comprehensive Plan's future land use map designates the majority of the property as a regional activity center. The remaining portion on the northern area of the property is designated as business center. The 2030 Comprehensive Plan depicted a potential minor thoroughfare that cut through this property. As you can kind of see, this greenish line. Of course, that minor thoroughfare was never constructed, but it was identified as a potential connector between McMurray Road and Tracy Grove in our comprehensive plan. Henderson County's 2020 Comprehensive Plan designated this subject property as industrial. That map was included in your packet. The 2045 Comprehensive Plan, that I believe is still currently going through the review and approval process through Henderson County, designated this area as employment and industry, which states employment and industry areas offer job generation, site-ready parks, accessible road networks, and utilities. Industries come in many different forms, including manufacturing, agricultural, distribution, office, research, and development. And that is from the Henderson County's proposed comprehensive plan. So the goals, primary and secondary recommended land uses, and development guidelines for Regional Activity Center and Business Center are on your screen. I'll save you, I won't read through all those. But the same was included in your staff report, or in our staff report. The land development chapter of the comprehensive plan designates the parcel as a priority growth area, which are areas that are considered high priority for expansion of the ETJ, annexation, and extension of infrastructure and services. Strategy LU 1.1, encourage infill development and redevelopment areas planned for high intensity development as indicated at priority infill areas. No goals, strategies, or actions for population and housing are directly applicable for this rezoning. Natural resource and environmental, protect lands adjacent to streams in order to protect water quality, reduce erosion, and protect wildlife habitat. So I'll also mention that the property is located or was located in a voluntary agricultural district. Voluntary agricultural district program was established by Henderson County, and it encouraged farmers to preserve and identify their properties as farmland. The program map and post signs and to post signs to identify their property as such. So there's no goals or strategies concerning this application surrounding cultural historic resources or community facilities. As far as water resources, prevent development of floodplains, stream corridors in order to preserve natural drainage patterns, and no goals or strategies for traffic circulation. So for compatibility, the subject property is currently zoned Henderson County Industrial. I-1 is the city's comparable zoning district. Henderson County's 2020 and 2045 comprehensive plans both designate this area for industrial uses. The proposed initial zoning to I-1 would be in alignment with the current and future land use goals that Henderson County has placed on the property and surrounding areas. So change conditions. The property was previously reviewed and approved under the Henderson County's planning process. They voluntarily annexed into the city in order to receive sewer service. Due to this annexation requirement, the city must zone the subject property under our zoning jurisdiction. I-1 zoning is the most comparable zoning district that aligns previous approvals and future site development plans. Aspects of the site are already vested under North Carolina general statutes due to their attainment of building permits. These approvals were obtained through a review process by Henderson County. The city shall honor these site plan approvals even after the property is annexed. So next we'll move on to public interest. So the subject property as proposed will provide additional industry to the city, or the potential to add additional industry to the city. This could potentially allow for additional jobs for city residents, as well as the extension of public utilities into areas previously not served. Water and sewer plans have been approved by the city for this site. The site will be served by an NCDOT maintained road, which is McMurray Road. Effect on the natural environment. The site was previously mass graded prior to coming into the city of Hendersonville. The development proposed on the site did go through all the required Henderson County site plan approval processes, which include but not limited to their planning review, soil erosion control review. There is an existing tree line that abuts I-26 that is still in place that will act as a buffer between this, or potentially act as a buffer between this development and I-26. There did appear from the USGS maps to be a couple of US blue line streams that are on the site. As you know, the city does have a stream buffer for blue line streams. We were not aware of the project before it was graded, so we're not sure if those streams actually existed, if they were actually out there, or if they were just a change in topography, or if they've even been piped through this previous approval process. So Planning Board took up this application at their June 8th meeting. The Planning Board made a motion to recommend approval to change the zoning of the subject property from Henderson County Industrial to City of Hendersonville I-1. The motion did have a split vote of 3-3, and the dissenting votes did make it clear that they would recommend CHMU for the subject property. This is the comprehensive plan consistency statement that the Planning Board had in their motion. This is their reasonableness statement and their rationale for approval. I also have a denial statement as well, and I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right. So, Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Mayor, it has.
Okay, we will open this public hearing, and I'll call first on Brittany Brady, since she did sign up.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me here. On behalf of the Partnership for Economic Development, we want to share that we're in favor of industrial zoning for the discussed property. As you know, the site is currently zoned for industrial within the county and has surrounding industrial uses. And the conversation with staff has always been that the industrial zoning would carry over for the project discussed today through the annexation and rezoning process. As you know, in 2021, the partnership actually identified this site through the Duke Energy Site Readiness Program. And so this is not just our staff thinking this is a great site. It has actually been vetted by consultants who go all across the nation and determine that this is actually truly a great industrial site with great access, utilities, and could be a great job potential as well. Our goal going through that program was actually to mimic the success of Garrison Industrial Park. So as a reminder, Garrison Industrial Park is a historic three-party agreement between Henderson County, the city of Hendersonville, and our organization, where Jabil announced in 2020. That was over a $40 million project, creating over 150 jobs with wages exceeding the county average wage. And so that we felt was a great benefit to our community, but also the largest tax base within the city once they announced. And so we believe this was another great opportunity to create space for industrial development. When industrial development comes in, it not only creates jobs, but it actually reduces the tax burden of all of our citizens. Our corporate citizens quite often pay the bills. And so the Hudgens site or the Blue Ridge Commerce Center site would allow that opportunity as well. Abadan Development has secured the property, and they've moved forward to construct over 600,000 square feet under roof. This will be multiple buildings. Collectively, we've invested a lot of resources and time, hinging on the hope that the city would annex and rezone the site as industrial. And many of you were actually at the groundbreaking in October, and so we hope to carry that forward. I'm going to allow Tim Brent to come forward now and share a little bit about where they are with the project.
Madam Mayor, council members, thanks for having me tonight. I'm the Executive Vice President of Abadan Development. We're headquartered out of Minneapolis. I sit in Apex, North Carolina, and have been super excited about this project since, gosh, it seems like it was years ago now, but it really has been 2 years. Working kind of shoulder to shoulder with the partnership and understanding the vacancy rate and how small it is in this region, and understanding the need for new product here to entice business and jobs and tax base. We're going to be investing over $80 million on this site, and it is imperative to us that this site have the continuity of industrial zoning across all 4 buildings that we plan to build. We're obviously under construction on the first 2. We're pretty close on a couple exciting tenants, and really look forward to continuing that momentum on the next 2 buildings. So we really hope and would be, again, it's just imperative for us that we have that continuity, and hope you'll vote in favor of the I-1 zoning. I'm also available for any questions if anybody has any.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on this? Yes. Again, if you could give your name and address for the clerk's record, please.
Thank you. I guess Jerry's not back yet. I was hoping he would be here, so we had some balance here. All right, Lynn Williams, Chadwick Avenue, annex, non-contiguous, 65.31 acres, abutting an incredible forest that anchors the entire area. I agree with the planning chairman Robertson and the planning board members that CHMU is appropriate for the remainder of the property zoning, since it's along historic residential areas and legacy farms. Note the approval from the planning board was not given. The reasons against zoning for the whole property are equally presented. This was mass graded prior to environmental resources review by the city. No stream buffers were protected. We don't even know if there were streams. Agricultural land and irrigation have now been forever lost. Habitat has been forever lost. I hear the representatives say that they created space for industrial development. They didn't exactly create space. The space had a use. It was a voluntary agricultural district, and it actually still is until you decide how to rezone it today. And in that district is where we grew our food locally, and how we have our food autonomy and our local security, and infrastructure to make sure we can eat as a community. The buildings have not even been built yet, so they could potentially switch up the use without, I'm not sure if that's without even a site plan review. You can't really reference the 2043 comp plan because it isn't completed yet, and it does not have community input as the committee has only just been formed at the last meeting. How does a project get building permits without adequate sewage or wastewater output determined? How did they get these permits prior to the annexation? How did they get permits without knowing where their wastewater was going to go or sewage? I'm very confused about how that works. Private interest seems to be at the forefront, fostered by, let me guess, the Partnership for Economic Development. Are these the invisible hands providing backdoor deals? According to the budget, city subsidizes the Partnership for Economic Development with $25,000 per year. The partnership employs a lobbyist with an annual salary of $40,000 per year that lobbies the city council for developments and on behalf of private interest. I'm not sure if the woman who spoke in favor of the partnership is that paid lobbyist. For the record, I am not being paid, and I do not have a conflict of interest, nor do I have personal financial interest. I do my very best to represent the residents and the agricultural farming district and the habitat and our clean air. Nearby is R2 plus Henderson County R1. Like I said, the historic family farms like the Lyda Farms. What are you doing to protect our communities? They did not get the opportunity to comment here today because they're in the county, though this is going to affect them greatly. The maximum impervious surface was 80% with the county. How does that convert to our open space requirement? I believe ours says that we need 30% open space, but I don't think that's being met. As I previously stated before, it's like a desert out there, a toxic pond, 2 of them. I actually saw a bobcat from one side of the road where the forest is. So I'm just really trying to think of how do we integrate this $80 million investment into our community. You know, $80 million is a lot of money. Can we put some more trees up? Can we make it more hospitable to our neighborhoods and make the streets safer? The height maximums in the county was 72 feet. In the city, it's 35 feet. How will this be calculated? Can we please zone it CHMU? And that will help preserve the character and the history, as in the 2 projects that are already being approved, allow them to be industrial, and then CHMU, if they need an exception, they come back to you and you grant them that exception. But we don't just give a free hand to any kind of industrial use right there in the most prime property off of the interstate. I appreciate that you're keeping the buffers along the front. That's great. I just feel that it's not okay to force this project on the citizens. We didn't get a chance to speak up at the beginning about the design or anything like that. Only time we got to speak up was at the annexation. I didn't even feel like I was heard. I was the only one that spoke up. Here we are again. It just seems like it was never even an option for the residents to have a choice, nor the county. I'll finish up here. You know, once again, what about the tree requirements? You know, bird migrations and animal habitat, the environment, our air, our water, the stormwater mitigation. What is the loss of carbon sink? And I'm just very concerned about the precedent of this. This was an incredible piece of land, and if you look at it now, it's completely destroyed. It's going to lose its entire character of what it was for Hendersonville, and it really is not even necessary. I just think we need to think a lot more smartly about what we're doing, protect our blue line streams, and like I said, follow the money. And how are we going to keep the climates cool over there? Because the apple orchard's right next door. They need cool evenings so they can blossom during the day, and we can have apples. If we change the climate there, we won't have food growing anymore, and it's a real concern. There was smoke in our skies for a week long. We need trees to breathe. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this? Is there anyone online seeking recognition for public comment?
Yes, Madam Mayor, one hand is raised.
Okay, if you would call on that person, please.
Ken Fitch, you are unmuted.
Ken Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. Speaking to the issue raised by the previous speaker, the voluntary agricultural district as a concept has received great attention recently, particularly in conjunction with the county comp plan review to address the disappearance of farmland in the county. And the voluntary agricultural district is a designation that we should acknowledge. However, the site has already been granted vested rights by the county in its approval, and the site has been altered and subject to disruption, and it arrives before you with those existing approvals in place. And as you have heard, multiple substantial civic commitments that we should not ignore as part of an ongoing process. But one mentions the issue of this voluntary agricultural district as a future issue that we might consider for similar sites going forward as the city develops its own comp plan for other areas that may be in the city. So again, we have a matter that has really substantially been decided already, and it will bring substantial benefits in certain respects, and we can't neglect those also. But again, we're talking about a process, and we are respecting the county processes here, as Mr. Morrow has delineated. The issue was brought up by city staff that there are potential blue line streams on the property, and that is an issue that should require clarification going forward, so we avoid any contributing issues or impacts that may occur. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else seeking recognition online?
No, Madam Mayor.
No other hands. Is there anyone else here who would like to comment? Not, we'll close that public hearing. Okay, council? Discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the City of Hendersonville, changing the zoning designation of the subject property pins 9588-31-1844, 9588-22-8495, 9588-23-9432, 9588-23-3192, 9588-13-8975, from Henderson County Industrial to City of Hendersonville I-1 Industrial Zoning District based on the following. The petition is found to be consistent with the City of Hendersonville 2030 comp plan based on the information from staff analysis and the public hearing, and because the Regional Activity Center and Business Center designations recommended primary and secondary land use generally align with uses permitted in the I-1 zoning district, and the property is located in an area designated as a priority growth area. We find this petition to be reasonable in the public interest based on the following information. The proposed I-1 zoning district is compatible with the current Henderson County zoning and land future use designations. The proposed I-1 zoning allows for a wide range of uses that align with similar types of developments in this area. And the proposed I-1 zoning provides city with industrial zoning fronting the I-26 corridor.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor, for the record, I'd just like to say that I heard every bit of the hearing other than Ken Fitch's speech. So I just parked my car and walked straight in.
Okay, thank you. No comments, discussion? All right, you have heard the motion. All those in favor of approving this initial zoning, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and that zoning has been completed. And thank you all for your comments, and we do appreciate all the input. Next, we have a standard rezoning 2511 Asheville Highway.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. The city is in receipt of an application for a standard rezoning from Shane Louder, applicant, and Ronnie Gray, who's the property owner, for the subject property located at 2511 Asheville Highway. This application was continued from the June 1st City Council meeting for a plat to be recorded for a lot line adjustment that was made to remove the parcel located at 106 Hallsbury Avenue from the standard rezoning application. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property that is currently split zone R15 medium density residential and C3 highway business to all C3 highway business zoning district. The acreage is approximately 4.76 acres. It is designated, or the future land use designation is high intensity neighborhood. And this is a standard rezoning for which the city ordinance states the applicant is prohibited from discussing a specific manner in which they intend to develop or use a site. And if rezoned, there will not be a binding site plan, list of uses, or conditions placed on the site. So all permitted uses within the C3 zoning district would be allowed on the site. So as previously mentioned, this application was continued from the June City Council meeting for the plat to be recorded and is attached as Exhibit A in your packet. The previous lot line for the parcel located at 106 Hallsbury Avenue, which is that residential parcel located on the corner of Hallsbury and Asheville Highway, was shown in the dash line, has been removed to be in line with the existing residential lots that all front Hallsbury Avenue, and has been removed from this rezoning application. So the subject property is located in the ETJ and is shown on this map as outlined in yellow. The area around the subject property contains primarily residential and commercial uses to include the Henderson County Rescue Services Complex that is zoned planned institution development. The subject property is split zoned with C3 fronting Asheville Highway and R15 to the rear. The area to the west of the subject property is zoned R15 and contains mostly single-family and residential uses. And the area to the east is zoned C3 and contains mostly commercial uses, such as the Hunter Power Sports dealership. So here's some site photos of the subject property. The photo on the top, or on the left, is an example of the topography of the site, which shows the change in elevation, where a large portion of the residential parcel that's located on that corner of Hallsbury and Asheville Highway, Hallsbury Avenue and Asheville Highway, sits at a higher elevation than the rest of the subject property. And here are some photos of the existing conditions on the subject property, and you can see that it is comprised mostly of paved surfaces with trees and some vegetation existing along the side and rear property lines. The City of Hendersonville's 2030 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map designates the subject property as high-intensity neighborhood. This designation is prevalent for most of the parcels directly across the subject property that also front Asheville Highway. And the parcels to the west of the subject property are designated medium-intensity neighborhood, and parcels to the south that also front Asheville Highway are designated as neighborhood activity center. The first criteria considered for rezoning is comprehensive plan consistency. So in this case, the future land use designation is high-intensity neighborhood. The goal for a high-intensity neighborhood is to encourage low-maintenance, high-density housing that supports neighborhood and regional activity centers and downtown and provides a transition between commercial and single-family development. The proposed zoning district is consistent with some of the strategies and goals of this criteria. So with strategy LU71, locations of priority infill development areas where high-density development is desirable and or expected, including along boulevards and major thoroughfare corridors near neighborhood activity centers. The proposed zoning district is consistent with strategy LU 7.2 in that it does permit single-family attached and planned residential developments, but it does not permit multifamily residential. It is also consistent with the uses listed as secondary recommended land uses, which are public and institutional uses, as well as office and retail along thoroughfares. And it is also consistent with the development guidelines in strategy LU 7.4 for placement of higher intensity uses such as offices or higher density residential close to boulevards and major thoroughfares and adjacent to regional and neighborhood activity centers. But it is inconsistent with the strategy in that the proposed zoning district does not contain architectural guidelines, it does not encourage pedestrian access, and does not require a minimum 60% open space. The next element is land use and development. The growth management designation, again, calls for the site as priority infill area. The proposed zoning district is consistent with goal LU1 to encourage infill development that utilizes existing infrastructure in order to maximize public investment and revitalize existing neighborhoods. Under the population and housing chapter, some of the strategies and goals I'll summarize are is to promote compatible infill development, to encourage a wide range of housing types and price points, and promote diverse neighborhoods, and to also encourage mixed land use patterns that place residents within walking distances of services. Under the natural and environmental resources chapter, one strategy in R1.2 is to protect land adjacent to streams in order to protect water quality, reduce erosion, protect wildlife habitat. And strategy in R2.1 is to encourage cluster development that preserves open space while allowing a return on investment. Under the cultural and historic resources and community facilities chapters, there were no goals or strategies or actions that were directly applicable to this project. The resources chapter, however, had the following strategy in 2.2 to prevent development of floodplains and stream corridors in order to preserve natural drainage patterns and improve the quality of stormwater runoff. And lastly, the transportation circulation chapter shows that a proposed gateway is designated on map 7.3A in the comp plan at the intersection of Hallsbury Avenue and Asheville Highway, and goal TC-5 calls to enhance key gateways to the community in order to present a positive first impression and increase civic pride. The second criteria considered for rezoning relates to compatibility. So in this case, the area around the subject property contains both residential and commercial uses. Subject property is split zone C3 and R15, with C3 fronting Asheville Highway and R15 and to the rear of the property. The subject property also abuts PID zoning on the northern and western borders of the parcel, and R15 on the southern. And the topography of the subject property is oriented towards Asheville Highway, with access to the subject property provided from Asheville Highway. The third criteria considered is change conditions. In this case, parcels that front Asheville Highway are either zone C3 highway business or PCD planned commercial development. The fourth criteria considered is public interest. The rezoning would eliminate any non-commercial zoning for parcels that front Asheville Highway. The fifth is public facilities. A water and sewer availability request has not been received for this project, but the site is served by an NCDOT maintained road, which is classified as a major thoroughfare in the comprehensive plan. And last, the sixth criteria to be considered is the effect on the natural environment. Here, the subject property is a developed parcel that is comprised mostly of impervious surfaces, with some trees and vegetation bordering the property boundary lines on the northwest and south borders. And additionally, there is a blue line stream that exists at the northwestern corner of the parcel. The Planning Board made a motion to recommend City Council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the City of Hendersonville, changing the zoning designation of subject property from R15 to C3, finding that the petition be consistent with the comprehensive plan and reasonable and in the public interest based on the information from staff analysis and public hearing, and the rationale for approval presented at their June 8th meeting, and that motion passed unanimously. Here is the Planning Board Comprehensive Plan Consistency Statement. This is the reasonableness statement as well as the rationale for approval. There is the rationale for denial. And should council have any questions for staff, I'd be happy to answer those. The applicant is also present should council have any additional questions for the applicant.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. We did open this public hearing at the June meeting, so we are just reopening it now. Is there anyone who would like to comment on this rezoning? You would come forward again.
Lynn Williams, Chadwick Avenue. A couple of the concerns are The land use was supposed to be high-intensity neighborhood. This will not allow for multi-residential use, and that, therefore, it's inconsistent. It's also inconsistent in my concern about 60%, at least 60% open space. And as well as there won't be the architectural guidelines and will not encourage walkable neighborhood design. So if we're trying to create more housing, why would we rezone something that's made for housing to commercial and not allow multi-family? Just doesn't really make much sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Is there anyone online seeking recognition for comment?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, no one else? Then we'll close that public hearing. Council, discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move City Council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the City of Hendersonville, changing the zoning designation of the subject property shown in Exhibit A, recorded plat book 2023, page 14865, from R15 medium density residential and C3 highway business to C3 highway business based on the following. Number one, the petition is found to be consistent with the City of Hendersonville's 2030 comprehensive plan based on information from the staff analysis and the public hearing. And because the high-density neighborhood designation calls for single-family attached as a primary land use, and public uses, offices, and retail along thoroughfares as a secondary land use, and the proposed zoning district permits single-family residential uses as well as offices, businesses, professional, and public and retail uses. Number two, we find this petition to be reasonable and in the public interest based on the information from the staff analysis and the public hearing, and because the proposed zoning district is compatible with the surrounding area because the proposed area to be rezoned permits the same land uses as parcels that front Asheville Highway. The petition eliminates an existing legal non-conforming use. The topography of the site is oriented to a major commercial artery. The petition creates the opportunity for commercial infill development.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of this standard rezoning say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, and that one has been taken care of as well. Thank you. We have some unfinished business. First is our fog management policy.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. We're here before you to basically answer questions. I was not available at the last meeting when this was discussed, and I'm certainly happy to. I want to make sure all your questions were answered with what you have before you tonight. And I have with me Casey Soderberg, who is the author of this, so she knows it very well.
Just to remind City Council and the public who may be listening, this is a policy that deals with, obviously, fats, oil, and grease that come into our sewer system from homes, restaurants, industry, that do clog up, right, Casey? Clog up our sewer lines and cause sewer overflows, and also cause issues at our wastewater treatment plant as it relates to how we treat the wastewater and discharge. So we want to remove as many of the fats, oils, and grease as possible. This policy does do that, encouraging our restaurants particularly to clean their grease traps, to remove that grease to keep it out of the sewer system. So it's a policy that extends the life of our utility system and protects how we treat the water before we discharge it back into the natural environment.
Right, and this, the revision also includes a limit, which we have not had in the past. So we have a numerical limit now that we can actually have a way to enforce if we have to. And I understand too that there were some questions about the violations. Were there any fees? I know Daniel has worked on providing that information in here, as well as placing this in ordinance form. So we'll have I guess the teeth of it will be in the ordinance, and then the policies and procedures will be for us to use in the field. So again, it does, reducing that amount of excess oil, fats, oils, and grease it does help us tremendously in reducing sewer overflows. Sometimes they're not directly attributable, but they are in there somewhere. So again, we're here to answer any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
I know you explained this when you made the presentation, but how does this apply again to food trucks?
Food trucks, it would only apply to them if they have a commissary kitchen in our sewer system, which is where they're supposed to go and clean their fats, oils, and, clean any of their equipment. Now, you can also, as we've learned, you can have a food truck that's hooked up temporarily permanent, just has to be connected temporary, can't be hard piped. So in that case, they would be tied into our sewer.
Does that mean like you take a hose and you, like at the RV park, you hook it into the water, and then if that happens, that means these rules apply?
Yes, correct.
So in other words, they really apply to food trucks as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're starting to see a lot more temporary food truck, temporarily permanent food trucks.
I like that.
Well, the last day, I love that quote.
Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Council, discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council adopt an ordinance to provide policies and procedures for the management of fats, oils, and greases presented. I further move City Council adopt the City of Hendersonville policy and procedure for the management of fats, oils, and greases as presented.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of approving these policies and procedures, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Good. A lot of work. Thank you. Next, amendments to Chapter 10, Animals. Mr. Heyman.
Good evening, City Council. You'll recall at the mid-June meeting, you saw a presentation on the proposed revisions to Chapter 10 of our Code of Ordinances regulating animals. You asked us then to bring it back to you for a vote. We've done that. I know there's at least a couple of comments to address, and perhaps there's more. I've just got the same presentation. If it's helpful to give a recap of that, or however council wants to proceed is good with me, if we just want to start addressing questions with the ordinance.
Anyone feel the need to review it?
I'm fine if we.
We asked a lot of questions the other day.
Yeah.
Great.
I just have two comments.
Okay.
The first comment is a nitpicky comment. In section 10-33, where it's talking about the Animal Enforcement Authority, it says duty imposed upon him by this chapter as follows. I'd like to make sure that anytime we have this in here, it says them, just in case it's not a him, which at this point in time, it's not. And then the other, probably more important thing I had a question about was in section 10-65, which is requirements for construction and maintenance of poultry enclosures. Number one, it says the poultry house and run must be enclosed and the birds shall be kept within it at all times. When I read that, to me, it sounded like we were keeping the birds in there, like enclosed meant like not just a fence, it meant like walls and a roof. And so I wasn't sure if there was some way that we could possibly reword that so it was a little more clear. People who own chickens may understand that more than I understand that because I don't own chickens, but it just doesn't seem very clear to me, and it sounds like we're making them keep the chickens in their house.
Briefly to speak to that, that's language from our current ordinance, and so we're welcome to address it here. I know the vice chair of the Animal Services Advisory Committee is here. I don't know if the chair may be on Zoom.
She is.
Okay, and to speak for them, I think the intent is probably to keep chickens from running at large. So we could consider some language that would, at least, I don't think chickens have the capacity to respect lot lines, so maybe we want to keep them enclosed of some sort, and like in a fence. So I don't know, but if anybody from the Animal Services Advisory Committee wants to add to that. Great. So we could consider some revised language that would make it clear they could, be in a fenced area as long as they're not at large. And I'm glad to propose something, or I think maybe if we, and we're talking about 1065 1. Currently, it reads, "The poultry house and run must be enclosed, and the birds shall be kept within it at all times." And perhaps we strike that and say something to the effect of, "Poultry must be kept within a poultry house, run, or otherwise fenced area at all times."
So
Yeah,
see,
typically a run
people who own the
is-
chickens know what a run is, but like,
If you have a run, they're already in the run, like the.
But, yeah. So I mean, maybe it's not clear that they can roam around somebody's backyard as long as they're in a fence.
I'm also thinking like, so yes, the people who own chickens know, the people who don't own chickens, which could possibly be the people that are complaining about the chickens, it might just be good to make it clearer for them to avoid some calls, maybe.
I think the biggest complaint about the chickens is the rooster.
You're right, which we're taking care of.
That is the biggest complaint about the chickens in the city.
And Madam Mayor, the chairman of the Animal Advisory Committee is on Zoom, and she has raised her hand, is my understanding.
Okay.
Caroline, you are unmuted.
Everyone, thank you. I think in the interest of clarity, Daniel, the last recommendation that you made, which is just a slight change of wording, is appropriate. One of our intentions with this ordinance was to make everything crystal clear, and I do think that that point is necessary. So I would recommend changing the wording on that. It still follows the intent of the purpose of the ordinance and what the Animal Advisory Committee suggested. So it's not changing the intent at all. It's just making it more clear.
Thank you.
Might I make a suggestion to just change the word enclosed to fenced? It might be the simplest modification. And the birds shall be kept within the fence at all times.
I like that.
Excuse me. So we have two suggested edits to that, minor, but clarifying. Anything else? Okay. Thank you. All right, council, any discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council adopt an ordinance of the City of Hendersonville City Council to re-adopt and amend Chapter 10 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Hendersonville with respect to the welfare of animals as amended for its first reading.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Not? Those in favor of the ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Okay. Another step on the way. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's been working on that. Again, another big job. All right, news business, an ordinance to authorize the demolition of 201 Blue Ridge Street.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Just have a short presentation here. This is in relation to 201 Blue Ridge Street and a condemnation which the city's code enforcement officer placed on that property. So just a little background on the property, a review of kind of what's happened, an initial notice of violation related to the condition of the home and the condemnation and some enumerations was issued in June of 2022. Made a variety of attempts to connect with the property owner to remedy the situation. You'll see some photos here. We eventually boarded up the property ourselves, and then issued a complaint of noncompliance and a notice of an administrative hearing in February. We held that administrative hearing in March and issued an order to demolish with a deadline for action of May 8th, 2023. So that is the timeline for the subject property. At the hearing, the administrative hearing, we found that pursuant to General Statutes 160A 193, which relates to the abatement of public health nuisances and authorizes the city in that realm, also in relation to General Statute 160D 1125, which authorizes action in addressing unsafe buildings, and then in relation to our Article 2, Chapter 12 of our Code of Ordinances, which includes building regulations and condemnation authority. The code enforcement officer found the premises to be especially dangerous and prejudicial to the public health and safety because of liability to fire, bad condition of walls and roof, and further, we found the unoccupied structure's condition is likely to contribute to blight, vagrancy, and be a potential danger to children, and exposure of the portions of the structure to elements is further likely to accelerate additional decay of the property. We just have a couple of images of the property itself. It was burned significantly in 22, earlier in 22, and these are photos that code enforcement officer has taken over time. Specifically, this visit was from October of last year. So we are asking for the council to adopt an ordinance authorizing the code enforcement officer to take action on demolition of the property under the authority that I stated, and the ordinance goes through that more specifically. So I'm available to answer any questions. And code enforcement did work very closely with our legal team on this one, as you might imagine.
No questions? Okay, thank you. Council, discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that the City Council adopt an ordinance of the City of Hendersonville City Council to order the City Code Enforcement Officer to demolish 201 Blue Ridge Street, Hendersonville, North Carolina, as presented.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the ordinance for demolition say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, and we move ahead with that. Thank you. We have some board and committee seats that we postponed from last council meeting. First of all, planning board. We have 3 vacancies ending in December of 23, 24, and 25. Would anyone like to make a nomination for any one of these seats?
Are we starting with the term expiring in December 2023?
Whichever you would like to start with.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I move the City Council appoint Beth Robertson to the Planning Board with her term expiring December 2025.
Okay. Beth Robertson has been nominated for the Planning Board with a term expiring December of 2025. Are there further nominations for that particular position? Not? Oh, yeah.
Madam Mayor, I nominate Donna Waters for the 2024 term.
Donna Waters has been nominated for a term ending December of 2024. Are there further nominations?
Madam Mayor, I move City Council appoint Laura Flores to the Planning Board with the term expiring December 2023.
That would put her on two boards.
Yeah.
And those two particular boards, Board of Adjustment and Planning Board. And my only reason for voting against that is those are two boards that have a particular amount of planning power. I just don't think a person should be on both of them. I have nothing against Ms. Flores.
Do you want to withdraw that nomination? or
No,
would
no,
like
if
to
you
keep
want,
it?
I'm just explaining.
I'll just leave it. Thank you.
To withdraw that?
No, I don't want to withdraw it.
You don't want, just want to be clear here.
Just for one point of clarification, because those are two public official positions, we do need to know whether she serves on any other local government boards to make sure that you don't exceed, because you can have one elected, one appointed, or two appointed.
Do we have that information available?
I have no idea.
Well, then maybe we shouldn't be voting at all then.
You mean like for the county or for anybody?
Right.
Ah, right, okay.
Okay.
Can we just appoint
Do you have her
the
application?
two terms
We can.
until we find that out?
We can wait till next month to do that one.
Sounds great.
Okay? And let's just vote on the other two. Appointing Donna Waters to the Planning Board with a term expiring December of 2024, and Beth Robertson to a position expiring December of 2025. Are there further nominations for either of these two positions? Not? Those in favor of Donna Waters and Beth Robertson for their respective terms, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and we have those two. And we will consider the term expiring December 23rd at our next meeting. Business Advisory Committee.
Madam Mayor, I nominate Adam Justice.
Okay. Adam Justice has been nominated for the Business Advisory Committee with the term expiring June of 2025. Are there further nominations? Not. Those in favor of Adam Justice for a term on the Business Advisory Board, term expiring June of 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and Mr. Justice has been appointed. Okay, thank you. Got that taken care of, most of that taken care of.
Madam Mayor,
Mhm.
I have her application right here, Laura Flores. I don't know if we still want to check into it further. It just says currently on Board of Adjustment. She was previously on the HPC as a commissioner. 16 years experience as a Realtor. She doesn't list any others on this application. I don't know if you want to go by that or have me call her, but she didn't list anything else. Under appointed boards and positions you presently hold in any capacity, it just says currently on Board of Adjustment.
We may need to make sure she's not on a county board. She may not have been thinking of that.
Okay.
Since it was a city application.
Okay.
We just want to be sure. Thank you. Council comments. Anyone have anything?
Yes, I do.
Oh, I do too, but you go first.
I just would like to announce the back-to-school event will be August the 26th at Jake Sullivan Park from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Okay.
You said August 26th?
Yeah, Back to School Fest. Very good. Anyone else?
Me.
Okay.
Okay, so Caitlin, our new sustainability manager, has been hard at work working on the sustainability plan. I don't know if you all remember, but I think it's been about a year since ESB sent in their preliminary sort of ideas for the sustainability plan, and Caitlin has taken that and
run a little bit further with it. So in the next probably week or so, she's going to be reaching out to each of you to get your ideas for the goals that you would like to see us achieve and the things, the different buckets that we have, which are energy, transportation, waste management, land management, and water. And then there's also going to be some public input meetings on Monday, July 17th, right here in the Operations Center. There'll be 2 sessions, one from 10 to noon, and then one from 5:30 to 7:30. So if you all would like to stop by and check out the different, we'll have one table for each bucket in the plan. So that's energy, transportation, waste management, land management, and water. So you can learn a little bit more about some of the points that we want to be working on in there. And then there's also going to, at some point, be some sort of survey sent out for the public to input as well. But I encourage folks to come if you have any thoughts on how the city can be more sustainable, have more sustainable practices, and let us know.
The times were 10 to 12 and
5:30 to 7:30.
here.
Yes.
And that's just drop in, you don't have to be there the full 2 hours?
Correct. It's
Okay.
just drop in, and so we'll greet you when you come in the door, and then you can go around to the different tables, sort of like speed dating for sustainability.
I'm assuming that's on the ESB page on here?
Yeah, I know that we sent out a press release about it, and it's on the city's Facebook page as well, and online.
It'll be on the master calendar if you go to the city's city's website.
And we've shared it with a couple local groups as well.
And I'm assuming Brandy and Mandy or Allison give me a thumbs up that it's on the calendar, right? Yeah, okay.
Anyone else have anything? If not, we do need to go into closed session.
Madam Mayor,
Oh, yeah.
one thing, just the 12 and 13 got transposed, so can I make one announcement?
Didn't see
for
that,
City Manager?
sorry.
No, I missed it in prepping the agenda. Just a couple things for the public and the council. As we have just heard, for the next 6 or 7 months, there's going to be lots of opportunity for public input, whether it be sustainability plan, recreation planning. There will be some survey questions related to recreation, and most importantly, our comprehensive plan will really start taking off in the next 6 months with public input meetings. The council conversations will be devoted specifically to the comp plan. So each council member will be hosting one of your conversations throughout the city, and we will focus on the comp plan, getting that public input. So I'd encourage the public, and you'll just stay tuned to the website and social media as it relates to all the public input opportunities there as we go forward the next 6, 7 months. Your staff will be very busy doing that. So in that being said, their first opportunity for public involvement is our community connection workshops. They begin Monday, July 17th. We posted that just yesterday, and it's on our website. Those connection workshops, there's 5 opportunities in July, and there also will be opportunities in August. The first being Monday the 17th at 5:30 in this room, sponsored by El Centro and the Henderson County Cooperative Extension Office. Then Tuesday, the 18th, at 4 o'clock, one sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce in downtown Hendersonville, focusing on businesses working together and attracting a variety of individuals into their businesses and marketing. And then we'll have one on Wednesday, the 19th, at 10 o'clock at the YMCA. Let's learn a little bit about diversity, and then Thrive will be sponsoring one on 4 o'clock at the public library, and then the police department will host one at 6 p.m. on the 19th, and that's all about we're all protected, we all serve, the community and the law enforcement engaging. So first efforts as it relates to community connections, and then we'll have some in August.
I have a question.
Not here. That was at City Hall.
I'm sorry, City Hall. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, at City Hall.
So we didn't accidentally schedule 2 events for us.
No.
Sorry.
Good. Give me a tiny heart attack.
Sorry. My bad. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Closed session?
I move that City Council enter closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A1 and 3 to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or of the United States, or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes, and to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, and to discuss the case of Hendersonville Holdings LLC versus City of Hendersonville, Henderson County Superior Court, file 23-CVS 600.
Is there any discussion? Those in favor of entering closed session say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, and we will go into closed session.